Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I am here with my friend Bryan Ewald from, he's a PRS artist, a session player, studio engineer, guitarist for Starbelly, lots of different hats you wear, a full-time musician, which is awesome. And we're here to talk about all things guitar and music related. And kind of the theme of our podcast and the idea behind this is we want to give our audience and our customer base inspiration. A lot of folks that come through this door are, music enthusiasts, guitar enthusiasts, and if they're anything like me, I spend my whole day thinking about music and guitars and practice techniques and ideas and how to get better and coming up with better tone and kind of all the standard things that you probably think about every day. So that being said, thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and thank you for coming in again. I think this is probably maybe your sixth visit here.
Probably definitely 4 or 5.
Yeah,
I was here with Paul once. I've been here by myself once or twice, and we did the beer thing.
We did it. Yeah, we did a beer thing. I think you were here one Thanksgiving with Mike Dealey for our food drive a long time ago.
Right.
So thank you for continually coming out. And
my pleasure.
And
thanks for having me.
Yeah,
it works out that I don't live too far. It's not like I'm flying in from the West Coast or anything. So.
Yeah. So before we really kind of get into crazy guitar stuff, I wanted to give you the opportunity to plug anything that you're working on these days and kind of tell us what's going on with you and anything that you want our listeners to know about.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Like you said, I juggle a lot of projects, and some of them are just regional, bands. Some are cover bands and bar bands, and then a few original projects. Starbelly that you mentioned is one of my primary original bands. We put out a record a little less than a year ago, which seems recent to me because our prior record came out in like 2002, I think it was. So
it's pretty recent comparatively.
Yeah, so this feels really new. And we're already starting to work on stuff for the next follow-up record. It's a very like Beatle-esque power pop, very inspired by Crowded House, ELO, XTC, and which are all kind of tread back to the Beatles anyway.
Sure.
So that record is out, easy to find. It's all over. It's called 4 is the name of the album. It's on iTunes, Spotify,
everywhere you can get music.
Yeah. Okay. We just booked a gig in the UK. We're actually going to play the Cavern Club where the Beatles got their start
awesome. Yeah.
In May. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to make a week trip out of it and take the family, and it'll be I've done a lot of traveling. I've played all around the United States with, mostly as a hired gun. My bands have done some traveling and touring, but mostly what I do when I'm on the road is playing with other artists, which is great. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. But I've never been overseas with my own bands. I've been overseas with PRS. I've been overseas with different artists that I play with. Yeah. And it's been wonderful. But this will be the first time I actually went over and playing my stuff with my band, which is
that's
exciting.
Awesome. Yeah. That's quite a landmark in your career, probably to be able to do that and to play the Cavern Club is awesome. I mean, there is probably no more iconic place, in rock and roll or in the history of rock and roll.
I mean, playing like Wembley Stadium would be cool too.
Well, but you
got to start somewhere, right?
That's right. This would just warm me up.
I don't know. I don't know if we'd be able to fill up enough. Just the first 2 or 3 rows, maybe.
That's all it takes. Yeah. That's all you can see with the lights on anyhow, so it doesn't matter. Well, cool. That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with PRS guitars and kind of how you got into that and kind of how it evolved to the place that you are today.
Okay. Yeah. So I actually had a very short run working there back out of high school in '92, and which was really, it was great. It was a really cool experience. And, I was a guitar player that, I knew we had this, this brand that was big already by then. It hadn't really grown to what it was, still in Annapolis in the Virginia Avenue place. And it just so happened actually that somebody else had applied for a job there that I knew. and somebody who'd moved in from out of town, and I was the only guitar player in town they knew, so they put my name down as a reference, like I was a kid out of high school playing guitar, you know. But the guy who called to check on the reference knew of me through something, and was like, "Hey, we're actually hiring a couple positions, so like, you know, the guy that I was referring, he got the job, but also they were like, if you want to come down," and I was like, "Yeah, might be cool," and I loved it. It was really interesting work. But after I joined a band about halfway through the year that I was there, and was off playing all the time and not sleeping because I would get home at 3 a.m. and I'd have to get PRS super early. I decided I much prefer playing guitars than I do buffing them and sanding them. So, but I mean, there's so many people there who were there, who are still, Paul Miles and all these people that I got to know. Yeah. Tons of them. And that's how I met Paul. And I would see Paul at my gigs over the years, and we would talk here and there, but he was also always really supportive. I would get phone calls from people, bands looking for a guitar player, people looking for a teacher, and it'd be like, "Yeah, I got your name from Paul Reed Smith." So I mean, he was always and I'm not the only one. I've talked to a lot of people that he's done this to. Yeah. He's always been really supportive of people, and even doing it without asking for thanks or anything, just anonymously. Doing it to be, and then what I'm doing now kind of started, my artist deal started with them when I was out on the road playing with a couple different bands, and one or two that were, label acts. And I really wasn't playing PRS much because part of it was just, the budget, I was a working musician. Yeah. And they got me a couple guitars to like road test. Okay. Kind of artist guitars that were like new models. Okay. 513 was an early one that I did. And that's cool. Okay. But
so that was probably the early 2000s then, is roughly when that.
Yeah. And then it just kind of snowballed into, hey, why don't you come in and do a video? And I did a video or two, and then it was, hey, you want to do 10 more videos? And I was like, sure. and next thing I know, they're asking me to go to trade shows here and there, and it really just kind of happened. It just kind of fell in my lap and happened organically. But it's been, obviously it's a great gig. I couldn't pick a better company, and it just so happens to be in my backyard. And I think it's a win-win because they have other people, other artists like Bosco is in here that they'll send gear to beta test and stuff, like when the Sanzeras came out. But, they have to ship everything to him. they can call me up
and say, hey, come over here and pick this up and use it this weekend and see what you think. Yeah.
Or just come into the factory and try stuff out, or filming videos. I'm right there. So it's great. And I like I said, I couldn't imagine. I'm not really a clinician or a demo guy by trade. I didn't set out to do that. And if I wasn't doing it with PRS, I wouldn't really look for another job with somebody else, because, I love the product. I love the way they build them. I love the whole atmosphere of the company. So it's not, I just go back to putting a couple more gigs on the books.
Well, one cool thing about being in Maryland and being a PRS dealer and kind of being really ingrained in the company is these grassroots things that the company does to really kind of build the line in our area. Like it's such a huge thing, and all these things that you going out and doing these workshops, and you playing PRS guitars at a gig, and you posting a picture of them on your Facebook, and all this stuff makes such a humongous difference. So a lot of people just take it for granted and just, it's just kind of something, but all that kind of snowballs and builds this big momentum and this grassroots movement, and it's awesome.
Well, the internet and social media has changed everything for companies all over.
Oh, totally.
It's the companies who understand how to use that is a huge tool. Yeah. But I think the other thing with PRS that is just so different now in a great way is that it was like owning a Ferrari when I was growing up. I grew up in the town where they came from, and the idea of having one was almost a pipe dream for most people, because they were amazing, like heirloom instruments that
and it was as much as a car, like in your
that's
high
why
school
I
and
didn't
college
have
days.
One, and but now that with the S2s and the SEs, and there's so many things that they're doing now, and they're all great, you know, no matter what but you know, there's so many things in different price points that it's a really complete line now. So it really doesn't matter so much what your budget is. There's something in there that's awesome and
will fit your price point and your need kind of thing. Yeah, it's totally cool. Kind of to go off topic a little bit of PRS and as a guitar player, what are you listening to these days? What did you listen to on the way here, and what do you listen to like every day? I like wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I gotta listen to this today. It's gonna be a Joe Satriani kind of day. I'm gonna put this on. What'd you listen to today?
So I'm a huge song person. Like, I mean, I grew up guitar. Like, I mean, I listened to primarily instrumental guitar music all through junior high and high school, and I mean, I listened to bands like Van Halen and all, you know, but half the time I listen to Van Halen songs and I'd fast forward to the guitar solo. But I think at one time when I was a kid, I made a tape from my albums. I made a tape where it was just like all the cool guitar riffs, like back to back. Like, now you could edit it real quick.
Put it all together.
I made my own little mixtape of just, you know, and I would just sit there and like play along with every little bit I could. But and it's not that I don't listen to guitar music. I still do, but you know, Jeff Beck has always been like probably one of my favorites, and I still listen to it. But I gravitate towards great guitar players within the context of songs, and my taste is all over the map, just like everybody's is, you know. I love, lately I've been listening to guys like, Joey Landreth, the Landreth brothers, Ariel Posen, who's actually I discovered who was playing with them. They're both kind of rootsy, almost like Derek Trucksy style players. Great players. Both are great singers. They both have new records out. I was just listening to Joey released a new single like yesterday, and I downloaded and I probably listened to it 4 times on the drive down here.
Wow! All right.
I usually have my iPod on shuffle, and I even though I have tons of music on my phone, I still have an iPod in my car, 160 gig iPod that's full, and so like, and I a lot of times just have that on shuffle, and then like
let it go.
Something will hit, and I'll go.
Oh, that's
in the beginning of the drive, and I'll like. I'm in the, because usually once I latch onto something, whatever mood I'm in that day, I want to listen to that. Like, and I'm an album person too. Like, usually there's certain albums that I don't want to hear. If I like Pink Floyd's Animals, I mean, actually a lot of Pink Floyd stuff. Like, if I want to listen to it, I want to put it on in the beginning and hear it to the end.
So you need a long drive like to Island Music to listen to.
Yeah. This is great. I can get an album, maybe an album and a half.
My problem is I live too close to work. So I get like a song and a half in. You know, like somebody gave me the new Joe Satriani album. It's just picking on him, but it's like, oh yeah, you got to check out track 10. And I was like, man, it's going to take me like a month to get to track 10, just driving back and forth to work. But
I do spend a lot of time listening to songs that I have to for gigs, stuff. I'm constantly having to learn stuff for different, you know, doing a hired gun gig with somebody and I've got to prep all this material. And or if I'm working on something in the studio, whether I'm playing a session or mixing stuff, you know, a lot of times I'm listening to one song over and over, like different mixes that I made in the car. So I spend a lot of time, like what I consider to be like my work listening time, which is not bad. At least I like all the stuff I'm working on, and I like most of the songs I have to learn. You know? I mean, occasionally there's one that you like. This song again. I've been playing with this guy Jimmy Davies probably for 20 years. We've had a band called Jarflies, but his main other thing is he's the lead singer and songwriter for Jimmy's Chicken Shack. So he goes by Jimmy Ha-Ha's.
We've had him here too.
So Jimmy and I have been in a band together, but it's very different than the Chicken Shack stuff. But I'm actually going to be doing a Chicken Shack gig. Island Styles is also doing with Candlebox. So there's at least 1 or 2 Chicken Shack shows this summer, and I mean, I've known them since they started, and I'm familiar with the tunes, but they're really angular kind of. They're specific parts. It's not stuff like, oh, you write down a couple chords and you
just figure your way through it.
So I've been listening to that a lot to
get
it back into my brain.
Well, that's cool. I didn't know that connection. That's awesome.
it's big, happy Maryland family. You know, it's all. It's really, you know.
Yeah, we had them. Let's see, I think 2, maybe 3 Rocktoberfests ago, and yeah, they were awesome. It was a really cool thing to see them on a stage here in my hometown.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
as a kid, you know, when they came out, they were awesome. You know, and
great energy. Yeah, always such a great band, and he's a great front man. He's a really great songwriter.
Yeah,
I mean, there were cool sounding songs and stuff, but like if you really delve into his catalog and stuff lyrically, he's
and some of the deeper
writer.
cuts that weren't necessarily the single, but you know, you can listen to some of those albums all the way through, and there's just great songs.
Really
the
cool
whole way
stuff.
through. Yeah, that's awesome. What are some of your current musical goals other than to keep working? what else do you have kind of on the horizon, or that you're you know, kind of pushing towards?
Well, because I've made so much of my living as a hired gun, and I really enjoy it, and I enjoy playing different stuff all the time. So it's, you know, you don't have enough time to really get bored of anything or sick of it, because you. But the downfall is that, like, your own projects, your own creative outlets
get pushed to the back.
Yeah, and you know, that's why Starbelly didn't have a record for that long, because we all are full-time musicians doing our own thing, and so we've played together still. Like, it's not that we broke up, but we've been doing gigs, you know, doing bar gigs and different things, and even those are really fun. Like, it's, you know, we kind of got out of the creative side, and so I'm really right now reinvigorated and inspired to really kind of make sure I leave myself time for writing. I'd love to put out a solo record. I've been thinking about doing that for a decade or more, and I just need to get, like, you know, kick myself in the butt and actually get doing it. Yeah, but so that's probably my primary goal, just to keep writing. I love collaborating and writing with other people, so like I just got to find time for it.
Yeah, it would be. I think for you to do a solo record would really be an awesome statement, and would also kind of like archive this period in your life, and this, you know, and some of the songs that you've probably written over the years that kind of put a stamp, you know, to a certain period of time. It would be an awesome thing to add to your collection of. And
I mean, I have a studio in the house, and you could just put the stuff. You don't even have to press CDs if you don't want to. It's not all the work that it used to be. You don't have to rent studio time and, you know, come up with a couple grand to press 1,000 discs, and hopes to sell half of them, and you have a couple boxes of CDs left in
that you can give
garage.
for Christmas and stuff, the family members. So do you have an actual practice routine, or is everything pretty much just, I have to practice this for work?
I've never been really good at sitting down and practicing specific things. I run through songs a lot that I have to work on. But even when I was a kid, I was much more of a riff or a song kind of like, I would sit down and go, okay, I'm going to practice these arpeggios or these scales. And I mean, after 30 seconds of it, I'm off on a tangent, and I just start improvising, you know, and noodling. And I wish I had, like, I wish I was somewhere a little bit more in the middle. I like what I've done, because I think practicing things that are too mechanical can, even if you get really fluid at it, can turn into very mechanical sounding playing. Sure. And I like very musical sounding things. You know, it doesn't have to be fancy for me to be into it. And sometimes I think if you spend too much time on the mechanics and not focusing enough on, I mean, melody and rhythm, and I don't mean rhythm just as in rhythm guitar playing. I mean varying rhythm. Sure. I know people that
fits the song, or fits between the drum beat, or
even
whatever.
My favorite guitar players who are really technically advanced, you know, guys like Eddie Van Halen and Eric Johnson, and I mean, there's a million, and Satriani, all those guys. Even though there's a tremendous amount of technique in what they do, they're all melody driven. They all they write great parts, and they're hooky, and if it weren't for that, technique without any of that is no good to me. Yeah. You know, and I'd rather have something that's really simple and easy to play that sounds musical than something that's really fancy that has, you know, if it's cool and has some cool technique to it and it's musical, great. That's awesome. But and I find myself in a lot of situations where I have to like kind of fly by the seat of my pants musically. So I spend a lot of time just putting myself in just picking up and just hearing something, and
I got to play along with that.
just
like I have to
noodle
figure out
around
what's
and,
going on. Like
if something, the TV's on in the background, and I'm sitting there with a guitar in my hand, and I'm just the commercial is on, and I'm just trying to mimic what's happening.
Okay, that's in G, and I go. Okay,
it's just ear training, you know. And you get to the point where it, just like anything, you know, people see you do stuff like that, and they go,
"Oh wow!"
You know, if you spend all your time looking at tabs or having somebody walk you through it, you can learn the songs, but there's no way to develop your ear and figuring out than just trying.
Yeah.
And if it takes you hours to figure out, you know, 20 seconds of a song in the beginning, well, after that, it's going to take you half the time to figure out more. And before you know it, after time, it's the other way around. You can figure out all kinds of stuff.
Sure. And once you kind of get used to the patterns and the chord changes, and it's just, and also, no matter what situation that you get put in, you can adapt to it. Mm-hmm. So you might not have spent 3 hours practicing your sweep picking, but if all of a sudden, you know, a band calls you up on stage and hands you a guitar, chances are you'll be able to figure out the chord progression and you know, play a lead part over it or something. So yeah, that's practice, just different.
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time just playing and you know, figuring out songs, you know.
So you mentioned that you have a studio in your house. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your studio and about some of your studio projects. I think I read that last year you worked with maybe 40 different artists. Yeah,
but that wouldn't all be in the studio. That's probably gigs and you know. But in the studio, I still work with I don't have like a commercial space where I typically like produce bands. I do every once in a while, but it's rare just because I don't have a lot of time. Sure. And it's in my house and there's not a lot of space.
Sure.
It's primarily set up for me to track guitars on people's records remotely. So people are recording their record wherever, they can send me files. I can lay down guitar parts and send it back to them. So I do a lot of that.
Okay.
And, you know, I've got my guitars around pedal shelves with pedals. Most of my amps are off to my right, and then I'm running almost always, you know, into a ISO booth, a closed off room with cabinets in it. So even if I'm using an amp that's a combo, I'm still using the combo as a head typically.
Okay.
And you know, so it's pretty much set up. I can go down there and flip everything on and start tracking the stuff. But I have drums down there. They're crammed in there. And every once in a while I record. My kids both play, so they'll go down and
jam along
in the studio.
And record that. Yeah.
But it's pretty tight. If I'm like, I could record a trio down there and it'd be cozy, but it's not really set up to have a band come in. Yeah. It's an overdub room.
Okay.
And I do some mixing and stuff like that. And I enjoy doing that, but I don't advertise or like, there's so many great studios around that usually if it's somebody a big project, I'm like, go there, you can get it done a lot. But like lately I've been, I play live a bunch, and I don't know if you know Eric Scott. He's a great songwriter, singer, and bass player extraordinaire. I play a lot of guitar for him. He's got 2 records coming out this year.
Oh, wow.
So I did a bunch of stuff with that. Brandon Hardesty, who's from the band Bumpin' Uglies, the lead singer of Bumpin' Uglies.
I don't think.
And I've been doing some solo stuff of his. You know, outside of his band, he's kind of doing a little solo project, and it's basically, so far, it's just been me and him. He comes and records acoustic guitar and vocal, and then I build up this instrumentation around him. And I play some other stuff other than guitar. A little bit of keys. I play a lot of bass, and I dabble on drums, but I don't record them anymore. My kids are so much better than me. I'll either call in a session guy, or I'll just call one of my kids.
Son, come down here. I was going to ask you about that. I noticed that you'd been doing some gigs with your kids. Tell me about that. That's like a dream of mine.
It's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they're both super musical, and not just, I mean, I'm just into it. They love it, you know. Yeah. And my wife is musical. She doesn't do anything professional with it. She used to sing here and there, but everybody gives me all the credit because I'm the full-time musician. And when you have 2 musical kids, they're like, oh, they get it from you. And her whole family is musical. And they all sing beautifully. They all have great pitch and all this. And they just think that's normal, that everybody in the world just has that.
You know?
So they get a lot from both sides. And but they, you know, they both kind of started on drums primarily. I bought a toy kit. I had
which is perfect for
stuff
you.
Lying around the house, and it's just, I didn't force anything. I just like, there's always stuff for them to mess with. And then when my older son got serious about it, like he maybe like 9, and it was like, okay, he wanted to do like this little music school thing, and I was like, well, just pick one instrument to focus on. You can play whatever you want, but like
your focus, your main
and
instrument
it was like, he was like, definitely drums, and like he just took off and ran with it, and then I think his little brother decided he wanted to make whatever big brother did. Little brother wanted to do too. But I also think there's something about drums when you're little, like it's immediate. You can hit it, and it's fun, and it makes it sound like
sounds cool.
Piano and keyboards is a little also because you can to play a song is not easy, but if I hit middle C on a keyboard, you could get a 2-year-old to come over and hit it and get the same note and sound of it.
Right.
A stringed instrument
is a
different,
easy.
with just the strength in your hands and the size of your hands makes it a little bit longer of an early learning curve. And of course, I mean, there's videos of young kids just ripping it up. So it's not that it's
playing
not possible,
like Eruption better than me.
Yeah, but they both just took to drums. When they were little, they would both come out to gigs and sit in and sing with me. Like if I was doing a little acoustic happy hour, family friendly gig.
Yeah.
And then I would have them come sit in. They'd play drums on a song with one of my bands somewhere. And I don't remember exactly what age they were, but they were both probably 11 or 12, around that age, where I first brought them out to like an acoustic gig, and I brought a little tiny kit and basically did a full gig, just duo, had them play songs that they didn't know, and just like feet to the fire kind of thing. And now we regularly I do regular gigs with both of them. My older son he's the first call sub in my band with Jimmy.
Really?
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
He's done maybe 3 gigs with us. He's got another one coming up in May.
Wow.
I've got friends calling me like,
hey, is your son free?
And then they forget, oh, he doesn't have a car yet, right? Oh yeah. So and I've used them on sessions, and not just me trying to push them on it. Some of the artists that I'm playing with have like, hey, you should have, one of the boys played. So they're gigging all the time. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's a lot of fun. That's my other goal, even though I've done a lot of gigs with both of them, and a couple things where it's been the 3 of us. They both can play bass a bit, but I want to get them both up to where they could do half the night on bass, so I could do a trio gig with just them.
Oh,
I've done some trio gigs with one on drums and a friend playing bass.
Yeah.
They could get through a couple songs, but to get through a whole night to where it's just the 3 of us.
Yeah, like 2 sets or 3 sets of all that would be really cool.
Yeah. And they both sing. We just actually did that last week at a benefit concert. We did like a 7-song thing, and it was basically just the 3 of us. And
yeah, that's totally awesome. That's an awesome musical goal.
I just hope neither of them pick up guitar, because I'm sure by the time they're like 20, they'll be tearing me up.
You're like, Dad, get back on the drums. Yeah,
my phone will ring. They'll be like, yeah, is Aiden home?
That's funny. Well, you seem to be a gear fanatic. Tell me a little bit about your current rig and some of the other cool pieces in your collection. I know before we started recording, you and I were talking about our guitar collection, and it was kind of getting like, oh, this is too cool. We should save this for the interview. But tell me a little bit about your current rig and kind of some of your favorite pieces that you have. Yeah,
I've always been a gear junkie, and I got to a point, I don't remember exactly what point in my life, but there was a point where I was able to acquire something new without having to sell something to get it, and since then I've really, unless there's something that I just had for a while and didn't bond with, for the most part I've kept everything. I have sold a few things recently, nothing that's sentimental. If you had asked me, my guitar collection has shot up in the past 10 years, partially because of the thing with PRS. It's too tempting, and I'm too close to it, and it's like, I probably have 60 instruments, stringed instruments. Maybe 40 of those are guitars, 45.
Okay.
Maybe like 10. And I even though it is a lot, it's not necessary. I totally admit that. But I don't really have a lot of duplicate sounds. Like I don't have like 7 Strats. Or to me, that's just not. I'm not a collector. I'm a player, and I've got everything. I got to have a lot of weird, kind of quirky stuff. I have, Silver Sky, which I absolutely love. I don't have a 594, even though it's probably my favorite model, but I have a McCarty single cut.
Okay.
That is basically a 594. I mean, it is, other than the knob layout, slight different knob layout, and a few
Little
a tiny fraction
details,
of it, but it's the same 2-piece bridge. If I did not have that guitar, I would have a 594 without question. That is one of my favorite guitars.
Okay.
I have a P245, which is basically similar to that, but with the piezo output that I use on certain gigs where I do that split acoustic electric thing a lot.
Okay.
And I have a lot, like I have an original Starla, I have an original Mira, I have a really quirky it was a 513, but they modified it and made it a 509, with the different switching. But then it's really a 525 because Skitchy put like another little switch to turn on the outside 2 pickups, and there's a phase switch, or the push pull. So I counted one time how many different
pickup combinations.
And I had to write it all down, but I was like, I'll never use all 25 sounds.
Yeah,
but
you'll find 2 that you like, maybe, but it's cool.
But I think my go-to, like I bring out. I also have a McCarty soap bar, an older McCarty standard soap bar.
Okay.
That has the soap bar and then a bridge pickup, but it has a Firebird mini hum in the neck. And I really set that mainly up for slide, but it just became like one of my favorite guitars.
Okay.
So I bring 2 guitars pretty much to each gig.
Okay.
And it really changes night by night. Depends on the band.
Sure. But sure, on what you're doing. Yeah.
It used to be I have one main guitar. I would that was, it's like, this is and you go through phases where, after a couple of years, you find something else and that kind of gets retired.
Yeah.
But it's a weird feeling when I'm leaving for a gig and I'm looking around.
What should I take?
Going like, Sometimes I go, well, the strings on this are, I don't need to change the strings on this,
I'll take this one. Yeah.
But it's first world problems. Yeah, trying to decide which 2. But and amp wise, I was playing the Sanzera combo quite a bit. I still do.
Okay.
But I have a 2-channel custom that with either a 112 cabinet or a 212, depending on. But lately, my love is the I got a J mod, and wow. I've got the 410 cabinet.
Okay.
And if you had asked me 2 or 3 years ago if I'd be taking a 100-watt head and a massive 410 cabinet out,
he would say, no way.
I was like, why? Not for these gigs, not for, and I bring it out to every possible chance that I can use it because it's just, it's so much fun. Yeah. I grew up playing a Super Reverb, so the 410 just feels like home to me.
Yeah.
And I also realized I love headroom. I love the sound of a low watt amp cranked up. They sound great, but especially in a band situation, getting over drums, I want the amp to do the work. I don't want it blowing back in my monitor. But there's nothing just like having that big transformer, big
and
bottle
feel
tubes,
and response,
and the feel of like hitting that low E string and it punching. I realized that it's worth a little bit of a pain to carry it around.
You always kind of revert back to your first gear, like kind of what you started with, you know what I mean? So if you're comfortable with a 410 and that's what you started with, and then you go off and you try all these different things, and then eventually you always revert back to what you started with. I don't know, it's just a weird thing.
I also think it's like I spent a good chunk of my life playing pretty much every night of the week. I had all these residency bar gigs locally, and so like my weekdays were packed with gigs, and most of them were electric, a few were acoustic. And then I would do some traveling, but if I was home, it was like Sunday through Thursday I had house gigs, and then the weekends are easy to book.
Yeah.
And I lugged that Super Reverb around, but it was a combo, so it was still one trip.
Yeah.
And I had a free hand to get something else. And the whole head and cabinet thing, well, then it's 2 things to carry. It was all about convenience, even though it wasn't the smallest, lightest combo I could find by any means, but it was still the number of trips to and from the car.
Yeah, it's easier in the winter, and you had to park 3 blocks away or whatever.
Yeah. But then, now I don't have to gig that much. I'm doing different kinds of gigs and less of them, but I'm still gigging plenty, but I don't have maybe I wouldn't be bringing this out if I was gigging like back in the day when I was playing upstairs at Armadillo's downtown Annapolis and up and down those stairs. I probably would be like, forget that thing. But so it's, if you only gig or less often, you look forward to like
playing these cool things.
I'll bring the extra stuff.
Like I would totally, the next gig that I have, like I have in my basement, a full Marshall stack with a JCM 800 and a 900, and I can't use those around the house. Like it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But the next chance that I get to play somewhere big outside or in a bigger place, I'm definitely going to bring one of those, you know, just because I like look forward to it, even though, man, 412 cabinets are rough to haul around, you know, and it's like big 412 cabinets, you know. But
first
it's awesome.
place I played the J mod before I owned one, it's really what made me get one, was when it was like just about to be released, and it was a prototype that they wanted me to just kind of take out and get familiar with, because they knew I'd be filming a demo and I'd have to be like demoing it in NAMM. And that's when I fell in love with it. But I played it at a couple club dates, but I also played it at a wedding gig, of all places. Actually, the first gig I played was at a wedding gig, because I was like, I want to play it. I can't wait to play it.
So this is what
it's a wedding gig. So I come rolling in with this huge thing where, I mean, most wedding bands, like they're plugging through like a
small little 5-watt combo.
I'm like, it's like, it's all in ears. I'm like, nope. I'm like, and they're all looking at me like I'm crazy.
What's wrong with this guy?
But I didn't put it in the PA because it was just like, it'll fill the room. But it wasn't as like overbearing. Like it just sounded great. And I was like, I thought to myself, that was really the gig that I went, man, if it works on this gig, like
I could do it.
I can actually use this thing. It's not just going to be this behemoth that doesn't. So that was the one that I actually called Jim at PRS, that I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I want to get one of these things. I mean, I know it sounds good, but it just seemed like
overkill. Like,
it's been a blast. I love that thing.
So, do you still get pre-show jitters, or do you get nervous and worried about playing at all?
No.
Okay.
I honestly, it's been a long time since I really have felt nervous in the typical sense. I do get stressed out about like being prepared for all the songs, like because or that I'm bringing the right stuff, because it's like, it's not like I have this set gear that, you know, so sometimes I'm having to cram and, you know, relearn songs, even with a band that I have played with before, but I haven't played with them in, you know, 10 months,
make sure you memorize the changes and like, you know, what fills are where, and
so and it's certain bands like I could go and play with, and you know, it's been a year and I'd be fine. Like there's enough either improv or the structure of the songs, but like I play in a Steely Dan tribute band a couple times a year, and I have to run over. There's 30 some songs that we have in the repertoire. We don't play them all each night, but we might do a 25 song set.
Yeah, but some of them probably goes a year between when you're playing them, and it's just kind of like,
that's one that
I got to brush up on that kind of thing.
And that stuff is dense, you know, chord changes.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so that's one that before each gig I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know, so, but it's more of that. But once I'm standing on stage or anything, there's none of.
Yeah, a lot of times muscle memory takes over, or you're focusing on something else and you're not really as concerned or worried. And you know your instrument well enough to know where to play. And where
I feel more comfortable standing in front of a crowd of people at a venue playing than if like I walked into somebody's living room and they handed me an acoustic guitar and you're in this tiny like weird little
and everyone's like staring thing, right at you.
Like, perform, go ahead and play something. It's just like I'm so used to using a microphone and having that, like, so things that other people would be like, oh, this would be easy to do, that feels more awkward to me than like playing a, you know, sometimes the more intimate shows are harder to me than the ones where like it's a huge stage and the people feel almost not real because they're farther away, or it's such a big crowd that it doesn't feel, or you're at a bar and it's like you might be background music to half the people, so there's no pressure. Yeah,
so many gigs are like that where you're like freaking out, like, oh, I got to learn this chord change, I got to learn this, I got to learn that.
But those really intimate, like you're under a microscope ones, take me a second sometimes to get used to. You know?
But a normal bar gig is, as long as you don't stop or totally play something wrong, most of the time it's fine.
Which I've done both of those.
Well, that leads me to my next question. So as musicians and as performers, we've all had horrific, embarrassing stage moments or like epic fail gear problems. What are some that stick out for you?
On my personal, you know, fail things, not gear related, but like I have to. There's plenty of times where I'm in the middle of something, and you know, a song that like I'm I'm just kind of in a Zen moment and I'm not really thinking. And then I go somewhere that I like, and I realize like, okay, wait, hold on, I've lost my spot. Or I just hit some really odd chord, or, you know, and I know, and there's somebody there like filming it, you know,
like, yeah.
or, you know, it's being, you know, they're making a board tape of it or something, and you're going like, it doesn't bother me at all. I learned early on to like laugh that stuff off.
Yeah.
Partially because it's like, what are you going to do? It's a moment, it's here and gone, you know. If you're in the studio recording, well, that's
just
fixable.
erase it and start again. Yeah.
If it's a live gig, even if it's a board tape, whatever, I mean, it's like, it's still just a moment. And if you laugh it off, like, it's fine. And I mean, or if I'm singing a song at a bar gig and I completely forget the second verse and I just sing the first verse again, and, you know, people are kind of looking at me going like that, and, you know,
that's not it.
Again, but you can kind of laugh it off and just be like, you know,
I don't remember. Yeah.
But the worst thing you can do is like show that you're like that you're
defeated or upset
because
by it. Yeah.
Not only does that throw you off your game, but also it,
draws
from
attention.
the audience perspective, it almost makes them uncomfortable, or you feel bad for them. You're like, oh gosh, and then it's like watching somebody figure skating and then they fall, and you're like, oh my God, are they going to fall again?
Yeah.
But that's a lot more pressure than a gig,
yeah.
like some sort of Olympic performance. A gig shouldn't have that kind of thing. And if I went to go see somebody play, and I mean, it would be bad if they're like messing up constantly and constantly hitting sour notes, and it'd be like,
man, this
okay,
guy
practice
doesn't know what's
a little
going
more.
on. Yeah.
But like, you know, if you could go see your hero and they could just hit a wrong chord, and if they kind of joked around about it, it was like, it would just be like a funny story, you know? So that part I don't mind. I've fallen on stage before, you know, I slipped on a huge stage when I was young. Like, it was Cinco de Mayo at Hammer Jacks in Baltimore, and they were having a jalapeno shooting contest during our break. So they filled red Solo cups with diced jalapenos out canned, and there was a bunch of, you know, drunk people on stage, like seeing if they could finish this, and of course it's
all
spilling.
over.
So when we go out for like, and you know, it's Hammer Jacks on a drinking holiday, so it's
crazy,
it's packed, and we come running back on stage during the break, and I just hit a spot and just slipped right on my back, you know. Couldn't play it off like I meant to do it, you know. So honestly, as far as gear stuff, and you know, PR stuff is pretty reliable. So I mean, string breakage. You know, I did a gig last week where I had to finish the last. You know, I just finished. It was a 7-song gig, and I broke a string. Like, I still had 3 songs to go, and I had a backup guitar, but it was not anywhere nearby, and the set was so short, and we barely had enough time to do everything. I was just like,
I'll just get
okay, and it was the high E, and I was like, I could get, you know, and there's a few moments where I was like trying to play a riff that I was like,
what do I do here?
That's part of reason. That's why I'm primarily a stop tail, you know, player.
Yeah, because it doesn't go haywire when you break a string.
Back when I was young, once I started gigging regularly, and I had a Floyd Rose on a guitar, and I like was at something, and a string broke. I was like, it's unusable, you know. But you know, and even early playing strats, I used to block them off just so I could. I also do a lot of bending and playing another stationary note. So, and with a trem, that stationary note
everything
goes
out
flat.
of tune.
So,
that's.
But yeah, I've certainly had cable failures on a pedal board when you're in the middle of playing something. You're like,
what happened?
Oh God, you're trying to troubleshoot it, you know. But that's no fun. But nothing that stands out in my mind as much as like falling on my back.
Yeah, the jalapeno story is pretty good. That's one of the better ones that I've heard in a while.
If you do this enough, like, you're gonna have that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure.
And the main thing is not to let it like get you down, or
it happens. I mean, so if it's a job, I mean, how many times does somebody mess up at a normal job, or you had some failure mistake where you sent the wrong thing to somebody or whatever? You know, I mean, it happens. But
I had a gig out in Colorado with it was a band I was playing with. It was on RCA, and it was a big like radio convention. This was a big gig for them, and I was just a hired gun. But they were very, like, their manager was very like, he didn't want me to mess with my pedals too much. It was like he wanted to make sure we looked really like, it was a singer-songwriter band. It wasn't about me. But like, it was, the image was important. It was like, it was a short little set for like industry thing, and I was playing this Telly, like 62 reissue Telly, but with a typical ashtray bridge, and the strap like literally broke, like it split like halfway through like the second song, and I didn't have anything handy. So fortunately, it had the ashtray bridge. I had to hold the guitar up. I held it with my hands, but I was holding the edge of the ashtray bridge with my fingers for the rest of it. And it wasn't guitar heavy. It wasn't like super technical.
Yeah, but still,
but
that's
it was
tough.
I was like sweating like really profusely.
Don't
like,
move, don't move. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking like, what if it was a different kind of guitar? What would I hold on to? Like, I almost want to like put ashtray bridges on
everything just in case, or like eye hooks, just
like a monkey grip. Yeah.
Maybe that's the story behind the monkey grip.
I mean, other than that, I would have probably had like my foot up on my leg. You know,
yeah, that would have been bad for the image.
Yeah, that would look so cool.
Well, I want to thank you for spending time with us today, and giving our listeners some insight to your world and guitar playing. And before we let you go, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with? Any kind of words of wisdom or advice that you could give them?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to play music, whether it's as a hobby or whether it's for a profession, like understand that there's so many different opportunities out there. I mean, it's like teaching, playing, studio work, all of that is and anybody who's made a living doing it typically does a bit of each,
everything. Sure.
But the biggest piece of advice is take every opportunity you can get, even if it's a style of music that you aren't really into, but there's a gig, whether it's paying or not, and you're just trying to get your foot in the door, take it. You'll learn something from it. Yeah. You may actually, I played a lot of music that I didn't care for when I was young, and I grew to love it. And I grew to like really appreciate guitar players that I never really thought of as like, because they didn't play fancy enough.
Sure.
And then I'd learn the stuff and I was like, wow, this is a really creative part. I never noticed it. And so I've learned more from learning songs and situations that I didn't want to do or wasn't into. And I have to say some of my coolest opportunities that I've had have come from the most unexpected places, like a gig that, a rock band karaoke gig, you're playing somewhere on the Eastern Shore that I landed a national touring gig from, that somebody just happened to be there that night.
Oh, that's
so
awesome. Okay.
I mean, those things definitely happen. And if I was too proud and said no to the gig,
you would never got that. Yeah.
So just take every opportunity and show up to the gig prepared. Be easy to work with. Don't be a diva. It doesn't matter who you are, or how big you are. It's like, it's a small world out there. Yeah. And your reputation is what gets you hired.
Yeah.
You show up prepared. You're easy to work with. You write great parts. Writing a cool guitar part, having, good like reliable gear and a reliable car, like, knowing that they can count on you will get you a lot more gigs than how fast you sweep pick.
Sure.
Any day, I learned that there's a lot of guitar players that can certainly outplay me, but, that's not what gets you hired,
Well, cool. Well, thank you very much. And we look forward to talking with you more tonight and hearing you play. And
thanks, man.
Yeah, we always appreciate you coming out. So thanks.
Yeah.